What to do when you're pushing up against a wall that just won't budge. You're working your ass off, blood, sweat, tears, giving everything you have for years on end, if not longer. And that wall will not move, or at least it seems that way. It feels that way. Sure, maybe you've made some progress. Maybe you can see a little bit of strength gain in your arms as you're pushing, but that wall still ain't moving, and the goal is to move that wall. So what do you do? And I've had to wrestle with this question, right? I've had to wrestle with this question quite a bit, especially going into this upcoming competition I have on Sunday. I'm competing at Rising Tide in Philadelphia, and the last time I competed was at a national championship in April. And it's a challenging question because essentially what you're asking yourself is not only what do I do when I stop making progress despite my efforts to make progress, but is it worth my effort? Progress or no progress? Most especially if there's no progress. Is it worth my effort? And there was a comment on my most recent YouTube video that I thought was really interesting. I'm going to put it right here. And it was a really, really interesting comment because I think there's a lot of truth to it. And I kind of want to elaborate on it, but also offer my mindset when it comes to this, how I'm wrestling with this. And I know that this is a human experience. This is something that I have felt not just with powerlifting, but also with my business, relationships in the past. And so I know that every human is going to encounter this at least once in their life. And it's a crossroads and you have to make a choice here. And there's different ways to make this choice, but I just think it's worth sharing and walking through. And I haven't done a mindset video in a long time. So it's a lousy gray day. I compete on Sunday and I don't have any training sessions left to film. So it makes sense to do this. So it's a tricky question to wrestle with. Now, I want to start this off by saying I want to give this context. I want to define what this feeling is for those of you who either aren't sure if you can relate or aren't exactly sure what I mean by this, because it's very possible you've gone through this, but you don't realize that you went through it. The feeling is a sense of exhaustion. It's not desperation. It's exhaustion, and it's like no matter how hard you try, nothing works. You can't figure it out. And so it's not like a desperate, I will never be able to do this. I don't know. It's not a despair. It's a more tired sensation than that. It's like, I don't know what else to do. I mean, I'm really trying everything I can. And the progress isn't there. The progress that you expect, but even the progress that might even be considered to be realistic isn't there. And then you start to question whether or not it's even worth doing if you did make the progress, but most especially if you're not going to make progress, because why am I giving my all to something that's giving me nothing in return? And I think that that's where the holdup is. But that's a sensation. That's the definition for it. It's this state of exhaustion in pursuit of something greater than yourself that you can't figure out. You can't figure it out. You're pushing up against a wall that just won't budge. And I feel I've been doing that for years in this sport as an athlete. And it is a really challenging place to be because my job is to make progress. My job is to be elite, and not just to be elite, but to be the best. And what do you do if you're doing everything you can to be the best and yet you can't be? You haven't been, And I think that that's something that's a challenge because it doesn't just challenge. This is why and then I'll wrap this up on the definition side. This is why it hurts a lot, because it's not just a challenge to what you're capable of. It's a challenge to your identity. Not so much I'm a power lifter who's the best in the world. That's an identity that's not my identity. I'm not a power lifter really. Like I lift weights, I lift heavy, but like I'm so much more than just a power lifter. So powerlifting isn't me. I have a piece of powerlifting in me. What it really challenges is your fundamental belief of your own potential. You start off truly believing that you have the potential to be the greatest to ever do it. You truly believe that. And yet, over the years, the overwhelming majority of evidence you receive from the world and from the outcomes is that you don't actually have what it takes to be the best, that you don't actually have what it takes to be the greatest. To make matters worse, you've got all of these stories of these people who went through what you went through, and yet they made it. They're at the top. They finally made it, and that gives you hope, right? But that hasn't been your experience. Either you're not there yet or you'll never get there. You don't know. And so it's a challenge because it's who you are fundamentally. The identity of I am a child of God with incredible gifts and who has a father who has great plans for me, and yet I'm not enough for what it is I'm pursuing, for the dreams that I have in my heart. Am I wrong to feel that, to believe that? And if I am, what do I do with that? Where do I go now? Can I even live a life that's not in pursuit of these dreams? And so that's how I would define this whole feeling. And so it's not just, oh man, I'm working really hard and I'm not making progress. It's so much deeper and so much bigger than that. And that's why I wanted to record this video, because I've been going through it. And so I don't hear anybody else fucking talk about this. Yeah, it's a challenge. So there's a couple things here that I want to break down, and I apologize if I'm a little scatterbrained and all over the place. But the first thing is fuck your feelings. That has to be stated outright. Fuck your feelings. This is a conclusion I came to because it's very easy for me in particular to get super bought into and emotional about what's happening in the present moment. I think one, that's a very common trait of people with ADHD. But then two, I think that one of the blessings that I have is I can be very passionate. I can be very engaged, very involved. Like I see that in my training. You see that in how I compete. That's how I am in my relationships. I show up with a lot of passion in a lot of ways. I can still be level-headed, yes, and stoic, 100%. But I bring passion to things. And that's helped me with acting, all that stuff. The curse of that, though, is that I can't really shut that off. So I feel things deeply. I feel things heavily. Like I'm in it. I'm experiencing it firsthand, almost like for the first time, every single time I get hit with it in a way. And sometimes it's hard for me to step outside of myself in those moments. So what I've had to do, and this is the conclusion I came to when I was journaling the other day. Yes, I journal now. It's crazy. Is fuck your feelings. My job is to be a professional. And a professional has a standard. It has a job to do and a standard at which to do it. And so you have to make a commitment. You have to decide, if I'm going to do this, am I going to be a professional or am I going to be a hobbyist? If I'm a hobbyist, then who cares? Who cares if I quit tomorrow, right? I have a guitar here, beautiful guitar here. I have been going back and forth with guitar for years. I grew up as a drummer, used to play in cover bands, played in bars and stuff all throughout high school. And then when I got to college, couldn't bring a kit with me, was not going to buy an electric kit. And so I just stopped playing music, and I just love metal music. I love country. There's so many genres that I love, but so many songs that I just relate to so heavily I really want to play. So I bought this guitar, and I've been on and off with the guitar quite a bit. The only song I can truly play on this guitar is Simple Man, which is a great song, by the way. My point is this. I'm a hobbyist when it comes to guitar. So I don't expect myself to practice every single day, 3 hours a day, so that I can get on stage and perform with 80,000 people. That would be sick. That's a dream, but that doesn't move me in the way that my other dreams do. But when it comes to powerlifting or being a strength athlete, I'm a professional. Therefore, there is a standard. There's no such thing as skipping an accessory. There is no such thing as skipping a session. There is no such thing as not prioritizing my sleep. There's no such thing as not prioritizing the fuel for my training. Like the amount of sacrifices I will make and have made so I can be successful as an athlete far exceed what a hobbyist would do and has done, period. And that's how it should be. Because I'm a professional. I hold myself to a different standard when it comes to that. What you'll find, though, by the way, side note, is the greater standard you hold yourself as a professional in one thing, it should start to drip into how you hold yourself as a professional in other things as well, so long as you don't spread yourself too thin. But like the things that really matter to you, your top three, I call them. Like, let's say it's your relationships, your work, and I don't know, a hobby, something that you really enjoy, but you really are passionate about. Let's say it's writing or something like that. Whatever it is, these are your exercise routine, whatever it is, those major three things, could be five things even, but I wouldn't recommend going past that. That's the level of standard that you're going to uphold for all of them. So my point is there's a lot of benefit to picking something in your life and holding yourself to a really high standard for it. But what I was trying to say was, I'm a professional. So what does a professional do? A professional is going to show up, do the job, and do it to the best of his ability, no matter how he feels, or she. No matter how you feel, you're going to show up and do the job, because it doesn't matter how you feel. It really doesn't. And nobody gives a fuck anyway. Nobody cares. No one's going to say, oh, yeah, he didn't win, but he was feeling bad that day. nobody cares. It's either you did it or you didn't. In fact, even when you accomplish it, people still may not care. And in a year from now, they're certainly not going to care. They've moved on. So you have to recognize that feelings, though valid, though important, are not necessary for getting the job done. So in other words, fuck your feelings. Let them be signals. They will signal something to you. Something's wrong. Something's not right. Or how I'm interpreting this right now, this situation, something's off. Something needs to change. Or maybe this is great. Things are feeling great. Things are going great. Feelings are just the signals, okay? But they're not the source. They're not the seed. So you have to remember, I can't just operate off of my feelings. I can't just operate off of what's emotional. And it's not just the logical, rational side either. It really is, what is the job that I have to do? What is required of me to do it? Not just to do it, but to do it to this standard. Let me do that. And that's it. And you don't, it frees you guys when you think like this. And this has been one of the answers I've come up with. Again, this is kind of what the conclusion I came to when it came to this stuff is just quite literally fuck your feelings. Like, I get it. You know, I'm pissed off. I'm very frustrated with my lack of progress. I'm frustrated. Guys, you don't understand how many stones I have unturned. I have done so many things to try to figure out why I can't make great progress and win open world championships back to back and do all the stuff that I know I'm capable of. What could it possibly be that I'm missing? I've tried it all. I've worked my ass off for it. I'm not saying I couldn't work harder. Of course, I think I could work harder, but it's exhausting to work as hard as I do and not get anywhere. And in a lot of ways, feel like I've regressed even. It's a very exhausting feeling. And so I have to, if the job needs to get done, I have to say, fuck my feelings. So that's the very first thing. The second thing I think that's really, really important is to let go of the outcome, which I've talked about before. But you really have to be able to detach in the sense of, it's not just whatever happens, happens. It's whatever happens, happens, but I'm going to enjoy where I am right now. And my enjoyment is going to come from me giving everything I have in this moment. Whatever that is, doesn't matter. Everything I have right now in this moment. That's where the fulfillment will come from, because you know that you're giving your absolute best. And that can be really difficult, I think, for high achievers, for high performers to accept, because what you're telling yourself is, I'm going to try to make the outcome borderline irrelevant. I'm going to try to make winning or losing borderline irrelevant. The thing is, you're not necessarily doing that. Of course, you're always trying to win. Of course, you're gunning for the top, but you recognize, it's actually a really mature take, because what you're recognizing is, I can only do what I can do. I'm in control of myself. And if I put all of my attention and focus into what I'm doing right now in the present, making the right choices, sometimes looking in the rearview mirror to make sure I don't make the same mistakes, but I'm focused on me. I'm focused on the present, what I'm doing, not anybody else, not even necessarily what's ahead of me, just right now. When you do that, you're giving yourself the best chance to win, to succeed. And that's it. Michael Phelps has a quote, I love it. Winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. And I think that that's not only true of you versus other people, it's true of you versus yourself. If you're thinking about, oh, this is where I should be, you know, this is where I need to be, this is all that stuff. No, dude, focus on right now, because this is what matters. This rep right here, right now. Then let that compound. Worst case scenario, you're consistent. And we all know that consistency is the foundation for success. Best case scenario, you make a ton of really good choices, and that compounds, and you end up with a 23% return on the year, you know, instead of 7%, or fucking what I feel like has been, 3 to 4%, and then inflation just fucking knocks it out. So jokes aside, the point is, detach from the outcome, be present, be focused, and recognize that the journey itself is what deserves your attention and intention. So that's really important. The third thing is, and I actually picked this up from an acting book I'm reading right now. It's called The Dangerous Actor by Les Chantry. So far, it's a really great acting book. There's a few really good acting books out there, but this one has been great. He has this concept of good, great, dangerous. And he challenges actors to be dangerous. A good actor will do the right things, make the obvious choices, get some work here and there, A great actor will be working regularly, will maybe be very, very financially successful as a result of their career. They're consistent. They show up on time. They know what they're doing. They're great. A dangerous actor are the ones that we remember. They create the legacy. Marlon Brando, like a Hugh Jackman, Daniel Day-Lewis, Viola Davis. These are actors and actresses that they're just dangerous, man. Like they just own Denzel Washington, phenomenal example. They just own their lane and they stand on who the fuck they are. And it's so obvious, that there's traits about them, there's qualities about them that it's not that maybe other people lack. It's just that they're showing us, and that they embody. And he calls on these actors. I'm still reading it, so I'm curious to see how he, breaks this down. But the idea is to be dangerous, be a dangerous actor. And I've thought about that as an athlete, and that's kind of how I've expressed myself as a strength athlete over the years. Is I've always been kind of like a wild card, where I've been a little bit more dangerous than I have been great. I'm certainly not the most skillful power lifter. If you look at my open powerlifting, I've got a lot of reds in a sea of all of the greens and the red, whereas there are lifters who are way more better at executing and in lifting to a standard in competition, not missing depth and all this other stuff, making the right attempt selections and stuff. I don't know what it is, man. Something that just drives me is just taking that risk, taking that leap and seeing what the fuck is there. And I may fall flat on my face in front of thousands of people, but fuck it, man. At least I tried, and there's just something about that. Just jumping off the cliff and building the parachute on the way down. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just, that's kind of how I've experienced it. Now, what I've tried to do is improve myself overall by sharpening every edge, which is the skill, making sure I am a better executionist, making sure I am more consistent, making sure I am smarter when it comes to certain decisions. But it still is me, and I'm trying to make sure it's me that's doing it and not somebody else's voice through me. And trusting my gut, trusting my instincts on things. So this third thing I think is learn to be dangerous, man. Like learn to be dangerous. It's not being great, being good. That's not going to get you to being the best. You have to be fucking dangerous. And think about what the word dangerous is. If somebody's dangerous, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily great at anything. It just means that they're fucking lethal, that they are that sharp, that there's something about them that cuts through everything else. There's something about them that makes them a threat, that makes them a phenomenal protector. There's something about them that's different. That's dangerous. And that's what I'm focusing on now. How do I become fucking dangerous? Forget about what everybody else is doing. Forget about what everybody else says to do. What's the meta? What's the best microcycle? What's the best training program? What is everybody doing? How do you succeed? Oh, I think that this is the best way to warm up for your attempts going into a meet and blah, blah, blah. Fuck all that. What does Gavin Aiden believe fundamentally about himself? What do I stand on? What do I truly believe to be true? And forget the noise. Forget everything else. And let me focus on that. And let me go all in on that. Let me become dangerous. Develop my arsenal, really. And that's been now my focus. And so I'm as a powerlifter, what does that look like? Number one, I think it's obviously sharpening the tools that you have. So training, nutrition, other recovery modalities as well, whether it be PT work, body work, what have you, building a team around you for that, but really getting specific about, okay, I'm choosing this person for this reason. And not only am I going to trust them, but there's a real reason as to why I'm choosing this person over this person for this job. I'm acquiring specialists and my job is to execute, and so I'm trying to be dangerous. I don't need to be like everybody else. I don't need to think like everybody else. I don't need to show up and move like everybody else. I am a professional. I'm going to uphold a standard. I'm going to do everything as respectfully as I can, with as much integrity as possible. But I'm me, and I'm going to make those choices that I'm going to make, and I want to be dangerous. I no longer want to be great. Great is kind of boring. I want to be fucking dangerous. And so I think that requires a little bit of a different mindset, a little bit of a different attitude, a little bit of a different swag, it's just, you got to step back into yourself. That's the third thing. And the fourth thing, let me just check to make sure my laptop has not died yet. Okay, laptop is plugged in. We are back. Now, the fourth thing is getting super clear. You need clarity. Clarity dispels a lot of the bullshit. You need clarity. Not just what do I want, but like literally get a fucking vision board and put pictures on there. Grab a pen and paper and write it out specifically. God, the universe, whatever you believe in, specificity is the answer. You have to be specific about what you want. And I know it sounds really funny to like use this analogy, but it's kind of true. The whole thing about the genie and like, you know, you may ask for something and it'll give you what you asked for, but it's not really what you asked for. That's how I feel it is whenever I make vision boards and stuff, and like shit will come true and I'm like, oh, I cannot believe that this came true. But hey, you know, this wasn't exactly what I meant. You know, when I put a picture up of Olympic medals and there was a gold in the center, there was a silver and a bronze on the sides, I was like, I didn't really want the third place podium at Sheffield. Okay. I wanted just the gold, or, you know, I wanted to get the gold at nationals and at worlds, not just at the junior world championship, you know, so you got to be specific, but specificity is like the child of clarity. Like you just need to get very clear on what is it that you actually want. So I like to break down, as I kind of alluded to before, like 3 priorities. 3 to 5, but 3 is a lot if you're really going all in on things. So I'll give you an example. I've got obviously my family, I've got my work, and I've got my training, right? Like those are the top 3 priorities. God and my spiritual faith, that's kind of like exists in everything. So it's not really a priority. It's something that's just, it's always what glues everything together because it's at the center. You know, I like to think it's like spiritual's at the center. It's not like a list of priorities. Spiritual's at the center, and then there's offshoots of everything. There's branches. So the Lord is always the trunk, and then everything else is just branches off of that. Okay, so the trunk is there. So long as that trunk is there, the branches will be fine. You know, so the branches can't exist without the trunk. So that's why it's not like number 1. But those are the 3 like top things. Now within each thing, I've got priorities, right? But for me, just to break it down, like family, I want to take care of my family 100%. I've got goals there, but obviously I have my relationship with Heidi, and we want to see progress there. I want to show up the best I can there. When it comes to work, I've got acting and I've got my coaching business. Those 2 things, those are my biggest priorities. I do have my chalk business, but I set that on the back burner on purpose so that I can go all in on those 2 things. And then training wise, I'm trying to be a powerlifting open world champion, right? So this is it. I'm very clear on what I want. Now I get deeper and I get even more specific because branches have branches. I get even more specific in each of those things. And I start to ask myself like, okay, acting, sure. What in acting? What actually do I want? What does that look like? And you get super fucking specific about exactly what you want. And you potentially could even come up with a process to get there. I mean, that's really what you want to end up doing, right? So, because it's vision, action, faith. Create the vision, take action, have faith. And that's the process for achieving things in life. That's just it. That's not a secret, you know? And so that's the 4th thing. It's just getting as clear as you possibly can. Now, why that's important is if becoming a powerlifting open world champion was not something that I truly wanted, wasn't something that I cared about as much, it just didn't move me. I didn't feel like this was for me anymore. And only you know that, guys. Like, don't be afraid to stop using your brain and just use your heart. Like, you know, is this not your emotions, not your feelings, but your heart, like deeply, like, is this, pray on this stuff. Like, is this for me? Is it time for me to hang it up? Like, what does that mean exactly? You know, if I do, and only you know the answer, and there's nothing wrong with what the answer is, but that clarity will give you permission to make the decisions later on. For example, I told you fuck your feelings, right? Well, that doesn't matter if you've decided, I'm not committed to this. I'm going to burn my boats. I'm going all in, but I'm going all in on that. I don't want that island. I want that island. I want that kingdom. The open world championship powerlifting, people can have that. That doesn't interest me anymore. I'm headed there. I'm going to burn my ships on that. So it's not necessarily that you're just giving up on that. You've just changed the trajectory. You've changed the direction. Same intensity, same degree of application. But only you know if in your heart that's what's happening, if you are making that choice versus just giving up. And I know in my heart that if I just stopped powerlifting and stopped trying to achieve, you know, becoming, crossing the 1,000-kilo barrier and becoming one of the strongest athletes to ever live and all that stuff, or just becoming a great athlete in general, like one of the best athletes in general, I know that I'd be giving up on that because I love being an athlete. I love training. I love pushing myself. I love winning, honestly. I love making progress, but I love being at the top as an athlete. And so whether it's CrossFit or powerlifting, like I don't really care. I want to be one of the best athletes, and I've devoted so much time and energy to powerlifting. It doesn't really make sense to kind of switch just yet. And I still have these deep rooted dreams of becoming a 2-weight class open world champion and crossing the 1,000-kilo barrier. So for me, I know that if I chose to just stop going that direction, I know that I'm actually just giving up on myself. Whereas for you, if you feel like that's not the case and you're actually just changing direction, then do that. There's nothing wrong with that. So clarity is the fourth thing. Clarity is really important. And I think the fifth and final thing that's worth thinking about when it comes to this is you have to, well, I guess before I give the fifth thing, I guess I should just preface with my response to that YouTube message or comment that I showed you guys earlier. Again, I'll put it back up again right here. The comment, I haven't looked at it in a second, or I haven't looked at it in a little while, so I hope I'm still hitting it properly. But the comment was basically, I'm facing what a lot of lifters face, which is this idea of I'm not making progress as easily, and so this sucks now. And is it even worth me trying as hard as I can to try to get back to the place that I was if there's a possibility I may never get there? It's half true, half wrong. I half agree, half don't. I don't want to be back to where I was. Like, winning a junior world championship is a high, but it wasn't actually that high. It really wasn't that special for me, to be honest with you. I don't want to go back to where I was. I want to go way beyond. That's what this pursuit is about. So that's the first thing. The progress I'm trying to make is not to go back to this high that I was. It's actually to create a greater high, climb a higher peak, so to speak, a higher mountain. The other thing is, it's not just about not being able to make progress and working this hard, to not be able to make progress. Like it's not just about that. It's number one, what does that say about me? Number two, I refuse fundamentally to accept that that is the truth about me if that were to be the truth. AKA, if it's true that I no longer have what it takes to make progress, let alone go beyond the heights that I've reached, I refuse to accept that that's the truth, because then that would mean that I don't have the potential to be as great or greater than all these other guys, all these other people. And I refuse to believe that. And let me ask you this. If I did believe it, then what? I stopped training? I stopped trying? I stopped competing? And what? And go where? That's what happens to a lot of these powerlifters, which is fine. They pivot, they go into jiu-jitsu. They pivot, they go into golf. They go pivot, they go into something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's about that question I said before, is your heart. What does your heart long for, yearn for? The truth is, it's very possible your potential is better used elsewhere. My potential might be better used elsewhere, not in powerlifting. I'm searching. I'm actively searching. I'm very open to it. I'm willing to be led by the Lord. I'm willing to be led. But it's very ignorant of me and naive of me to assume that I know the right answer all the time. And so I guess my point is, it's supposed to get hard. It's supposed to get to a place where progress feels nearly impossible. And I do believe, I just refuse to believe that that this is it, that I can't figure it out and that there's no way to do it. And as frustrated as I am and as pissed off as I get, as defeated as I feel, I have to remember the truth. And the truth is, all things are possible through Christ. The truth is that He has great plans for me. The truth is that I have what it takes. I do. I know I have what it takes. And I will not stop and I will not give up. And the truth is, I see so many examples of phenomenal athletes, artists, every industry. We've got people who tell you that they did not have the talent, who tell you that they didn't have what it takes, who tell you that there were people more talented, who tell you their journey and it looks a lot like mine. Or they started even worse and had even less than I did. And yet they made it that far. They made it all the way to the top, not just to the top, but were trendsetters. They established precedents in their own space. Who am I to say that I can't do that? It sounds like it's gotten hard. It sounds like to be the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% is actually going to be difficult and really fucking challenging in more ways than one. That kind of makes sense because you're trying to be the top 1% of the 1% of the 1%. So it kind of makes sense. And I really do think that this is like in college, there's you guys probably know about this. There are classes specifically meant to weed out students. In other words, so when I went to Manhattan College first on a presidential scholarship. I was there and I took business and I loved taking business classes. I just kind of like felt like I had a knack for it. And truthfully, let's be real, business classes are not that intense until you get to like some of the more statistics side. And even those aren't like that crazy. But they're a lot of fun. Like I just love business. So I really did well there. When I transferred to Colgate University my sophomore year, they don't have business. It's a liberal arts college. They didn't have business. The closest they had was economics. I took economics and I absolutely fucking hated it. And what really helped, and I'm just being honest with you, and I was a pretty good student when I applied myself. I sat down after the first econ exam. It was like macro 2 or something like that. I sat down with the professor, really nice guy. And he was like, listen, this was the first exam, which the way that he did it, there was really only like 3. It was like a midterm, something between midterms and finals and then finals. I got a C on it or a C minus or something like that. And it was curved. And he was like, listen, I know that you did not really prepare for this test because this test was designed to be difficult, but it was designed so that if you prepared for it, you'd get a B or higher. He was like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to be, if you did not do well on this test, and if you don't enjoy this material, it's going to be a very hard road for you to finish the whole program at Colgate. He was like, I recommend considering a different subject. That's how bad I did. This dude was like, this ain't for you, brother. So I was like, all right, okay. What do you think? He was like, well, my wife is a psychologist. And he was like, we joke around a lot because psychology and econ are very similar. They both study the same stuff. They just use different modalities, really. Psychology uses human behavior and human experience, and macro, or really just economics in general, obviously, uses numbers to measure human behavior. Or I shouldn't say that. They use the math of supply and demand and the market and all of these things that have to do with how countries interact with each other and how economies function to decide on basically human behavior, to come up with predictions for what humans are going to do. Whereas psychology goes from the human side to predict and the cognitive aspect of it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I really do. I've always loved philosophy. I've always loved psychology. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think you're right. I think I'm going to go psychology. He was like, it's basically studying the same thing, just a different way. And so I went psychology and it turned out to be great. So my point is, there are some things that we'll do that will weed us out. And that's on purpose, you know? And usually those are things that we don't have an affinity for or we're not naturally good at. If we're not naturally good at it or naturally well built for it, so to speak, it tends to turn us away. And instead we find something that we're actually good at or that we have an affinity towards or that we have good leverages for, so to speak. And so we pursue that all the way. And I think that's important because what if we were all always good at everything? The fuck would that mean, you know? So I think that that's a beautiful thing. And so I say that to say that there are people, and this is why, again, I'm kind of coming back full circle to what I was saying about that guy who commented. I can't say it's like other lifters who face this because I'm not like other lifters. I truly believe I was born to be a world champion. And that's what I don't know if you guys get that. Like, I truly feel it in my bones. I was born to be one of the greatest in the world, period, at everything that I pursue, like genuinely pursue. When it's acting, you don't understand. I genuinely see myself as Marvel's next Wolverine, replacing Hugh Jackman, not a spinoff, not some bullshit, like the Wolverine. I see myself as I can feel it in my bones that I can be at that level. Same thing with powerlifting. As an athlete, like I can see it, I can feel it, I can sense it. I can't say the same for other people. I don't know that. I'm not them. But I refuse to give up on that because I feel it so strongly. And so while some lifters may be weeded out by plateaus and the process, I haven't been. And I'm not going to be. That's not my mindset. And so I can't necessarily say that I'm feeling what a lot of other lifters feel. I am trying to be the top 1% of the 1%. I'm trying to do what no human has done before. And I have done that in the past. At that time, it was whatever it was at that time. But that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So it's not so simple as just like, well, I stopped making progress and so it sucks and it's really hard to do that. It's more so like this is the dream that I have. Like to say that this isn't possible is to defy my biology. It's like literally to defy who I am as a core, as a soul, And so, like I said, I half agree and I half don't agree in that way. Now, the other thing to it, and this is the fifth and final thing that I was alluding to before, which is the hard conversation that nobody wants to have, especially in this sport. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Whether I make progress or no progress, is it worth it? Number one, only you can decide that for yourself. There are people, lifters, who devote their lives to the sport of powerlifting. As coaches, as athletes, they will spend the rest of their days just in the sport of powerlifting and they will love it. And that's amazing for them, and I love that for them. For them, it's worth it. For me, I'm not that way. Again, I'm so grateful for the sport. I'm grateful for what it's brought to me. I'm just so grateful, truthfully. And it's taken me all over the world. I've had amazing experiences, and I know I will experience even greater heights in the sport. And I've met so many amazing people as a result of it. It's afforded me so many opportunities as a result of it. So I'm so grateful to the sport. But I didn't get into the sport because of that. I got into the sport because I wanted a way to test my strength. And I loved to train. I loved to test my strength. I just loved training hard and lifting heavy and seeing how far I could push myself. I have so much fire, so much ambition. I just needed something to put it in. And powerlifting happened to be it. And so that, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it becomes a conflict when I now have to ask myself, is this worth it? Because the truth of the matter is this: no one really pays you in powerlifting. Sponsors, unless you are, it's not just about following. Following is really important, although the influencer market has completely changed. I really don't see anyone making a ton of money off crazy, like a fitness sponsors anymore. Supplements, apparel, like a lot of that shit has died out, guys. A lot of the money right now for companies is investing in ads, paid ads. It's not really in influencers anymore. So there's that. In terms of powerlifting specifically, I know the figures behind some of SBD's more top athletes and paid athletes. I was never paid that much by SBD. The most I ever made each month from SBD was about $500. Some of you may think that that's great. Fine. I don't know how you can't like live off that. And it's not SBD's responsibility to give you compensation that's going to make you live off of their shit. My point is that there's not that much money in powerlifting yet, to the point where, it's like, okay, this is a freaking real salary. Like this is a real job here. Like I can work at this. The point is, like, is $500 a month worth it in that sense, right? Now, things have changed a little bit. You've got some shoe sponsors here and there. Let's say when it's all said and done, let's say you're an athlete at my level, I can tell you, I can only speak for me. I've got roughly 500 to 600,000 followers across all social media. I have been less active on my short form and honestly even my long form, so you can take that into account. But for powerlifting companies specifically, you've got an equipment company, you'll have your shoe company because you've got Advances and Notorious Lifts, and then maybe you've got one or two other smaller companies. It could be a supplement brand for sure, but that stuff has kind of died out a little bit. So for someone my size, I can tell you right now, pre-tax, maybe 5,000 a month pre-tax when it's all said and done with all those sponsors. Now that's not including like the volatility of your code uses and stuff or whatever, but pre-tax you're making, was that $60,000 a year? You could decide if that's worth it. If you have to give your whole life to it, right? And there's not much room for growth from there. There's a little bit, but unless you're building your own business, which again is now, we're going to loop this in, it's very difficult. So what does that mean? It's not really about the money, and it was never really about the money. So then what is it worth? It's opportunity. Where is this going? Where's the ceiling? Like, how far can I push this? And that still isn't even totally there yet. Like, let me put it this way. So you win an open world championship, then what? As of right now, on paper, nothing. Nothing happens. You'll get maybe some extra cash from your sponsor, and that's it. And then next year will come around and you try and do that again. All you're doing really with the World Championship is trying to solidify your legacy as a top athlete in the sport, which is totally worth it if that's what you value. I value that, for example. But to say, just so you guys know, like on paper, there's really nothing that happens as a result of that. Your life doesn't change the next day. So that's that. Win Sheffield, then what? Then what? Look at Gustav. Gustav is a world champion and #1 Sheffield. He's a phenomenal athlete. I love him. He's one of my favorite athletes in the sport of powerlifting. I'm so grateful for him. But like, he has a full-time job. He's got his family, and nothing really changes in the sport. Like, that's it. Like, that's the ceiling. This is what you do. And it's fine because it's like, well, we love powerlifting. We're just going to keep pushing ourselves, and we want to see how far we can go. Great. But really think about it. Compare yourself to other sports. Compare to other endeavors. It's like the ceiling is so much higher. The rewards are so much more rich in other areas. And so you're devoting your life and you're devoting your time and your energy and effort, not just in the sense of, is it even going to work out? Am I even going to win? Am I even going to make fucking progress? But also, let's say I do win and I do get all the way to the top, then what? The answer to the then what question is very, very traumatic in the sport of powerlifting because there really isn't one. And so it's what you do with it. And that'll always be the case with everything in life. It's what you do with it. But you are now responsible for monetizing the audience, for monetizing the sport, for trying to go out and get opportunity, create opportunity. And that's fine. The problem is that there's very few opportunities. There's not that much money in it. There's not that much in it yet. And hopefully there will be eventually. But that's my point. So you start to ask yourself, like, the amount of effort that it takes to be the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, is this worth it? And that's a question that becomes very challenging to answer at this level because it really does. It takes a lot. And to be amazing, to be dangerous at anything is going to take everything you've got. It just is. So if that's the case, how many things can you do in your life that you can give everything to? Like I said, maybe 2 to 3. And that's kind of like where I've gotten to at that point. And that's that fifth thing is you have to ask yourself, like, what is the value? Is it worth it? And again, I can't answer that for you. You absolutely have to have like your own metric system for that. I have mine. Again, I was doing this long before I got paid to do it. So it's not about that for me, but for some athletes it is. And so that's one of the things that you have to bounce back and forth. It's like, okay, is this worth it? What defines the worth? All of that. And I think that will then also help you in the situation when you're pushing up against the wall. You feel like you won't budge because it's like, okay, maybe it's better for me to change my trajectory, change my course so I can go all in on something that I do feel to my core is worthwhile because it'll make pushing up against the wall that much more worthwhile. So yeah. And on that note, this was a long video. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Wish me luck for this weekend. Can't say I'm excited, but I also can't say that I'm not excited. I'm expecting to just go in and see what's there. I could total 830, I could total 900, I could total 930 and more. I really have no idea what to expect, but I am excited to see some old friends. Heidi's going to be handling me at the competition, which is great. My family will be there. I think her family will be there. Some friends are coming up to visit, so that's going to be dope. And then, yeah, and it's really cool too because on the analytical side, I get to see how some of the changes I've made as an athlete express themselves on the platform. It'll set the tone going into nationals. So I'm really excited. But remember that the goal for me for this meet is really just to separate myself, enjoy the process, be in it. Whatever happens, happens. I'm trying to beat my best self. And I know internally that if I beat my best self, I'll beat everyone else as well. So that's my mindset. But yeah, if you're going to take the island, you got to burn the boats. All right. So peace.